The din of Haven Point Station hit Elias Rourke like a physical blow as he stepped off the interstellar shuttle. After years of navigating Terran diplomatic postings across the Orion Arm, nothing had quite prepared him for this place, half floating marketplace, half cultural pressure cooker. The docking bay alone held thousands of beings from across the galaxy, in every size, shape, and texture imaginable. A neon blur of smells, voices, and motion surged past him. "Of course it's chaos," he muttered, tugging at the collar of his gray diplomatic tech uniform. It clung to his broad frame, military neat despite the heat. His assignment sounded easy enough: repair a failing comms node in the diplomatic wing and be off planet before dinner. But this place had its own gravitational pull. He could feel it already. The station itself spun in orbit around a gas giant, a massive ring structure with self-correcting gravity, autonomous repair swarms, and enough computing power to simulate a minor civilization. Every available surface hosted glowing holoads in shifting languages, peddling everything from anti-aging gel to interdimensional leisure cruises. Elias glanced down at his datapad. One faulty relay. Minimal contact. Fix it and leave. Standard protocol. Terrans were still newcomers in the galactic community. Polite distance was policy. "Excuse me, sir." A voice beside him. A station attendant approached, blue-skinned, four-armed, and wearing a glossy red badge. "You're the technician from Earth?" "Elias Rourke," he confirmed. "Terran Diplomatic Corps." "This way, please. The diplomatic sector is experiencing severe communication disruptions. Several delegations are less than patient." "No kidding." As they moved through the crowded corridors, Elias dodged merchants hawking mind-reading trinkets and travelers carting cages of luminous creatures. But as soon as they passed through the arch into the diplomatic sector, the energy shifted. Less chaos, more tension. Polished floors, hushed voices, side eyes full of judgment. That's when he saw her. Standing beside the smoldering shell of a communications console was the most compelling being he'd ever laid eyes on. Her skin was a deep, luminous violet, glowing faintly beneath the station lights, and her flowing hair shimmered silver white, cascading down her back like a waterfall of stars. She was tall and feline in posture, poised but undeniably feminine, wrapped in a black uniform that emphasized her narrow waist and curving hips. Her golden eyes glared at the console, slitted pupils narrowed in frustration. Slender fingers jabbed at the unresponsive interface. The feline ears atop her head twitched with impatience. "That's Ambassador the Lyra," the attendant whispered. "HFYxScifi Confederation. Warrior diplomats. Very proud. Very reactive." Elias approached slowly. "Ambassador, I'm the technician assigned to the communications outage." Her eyes locked on him instantly. "About time," she snapped, though her voice carried an almost musical undertone. "This terminal's been dead for hours." "I'll get it running," Elias said, setting down his tool kit. He knelt and opened the panel. Burned out coupling. Easy diagnosis. As he reached for his tools, the Lyra leaned closer over his shoulder, her scent hit him like a live wire. Something between ozone and warm spice. "Can you fix it?" she asked, too close. "Yes, but I'll need to bypass this section." "Could you step back slightly?" She didn't move. Elias stood, meeting her eyes. He leaned in just enough to whisper, "Ambassador, I need you to step aside." It happened instantly. The Lyra's entire frame stiffened, her purple skin flushing suddenly magenta from her cheeks down to her collarbone. Her eyes went wide, pupils dilating until nearly round. A visible shiver coursed through her. She crossed her legs slightly, stepped back, awkwardly, and put a hand to her midsection like she was steadying herself. Ambassador? Elias asked, concerned. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Then stammered, "Why your voice." The attendant beside them made a sound like a strangled cough. "Oh. Oh my. What?" Elias looked between them. "What just happened?" The Lyra straightened with deliberate effort. "Nothing. Nothing at all. Please, continue." She backed away with unnatural grace, like controlling every motion required all her focus. Elias gave her one last uncertain look, then returned to the panel. Within minutes, the bypass was complete and the console flickered to life. "All set," he said. "You should be back online." The Lyra approached again, cautiously, maintaining space. "Thank you. The HFYxScifi Confederation appreciates your swift resolution." Elias packed up his tools, but couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just transpired, something he didn't yet grasp. The attendant's 4 arms fidgeted nervously. "All right," Elias said. "What was that?" "It's not my place to say," the attendant replied, too quickly. "But, maybe read up on HFYxScifi biology before your next meeting." Elias frowned. Next meeting? This was a one-time job. The attendant gave a knowing look. Was it? Before Elias could dig deeper, his comm buzzed. "Earth HQ." He answered. "Rourke," said his supervisor. "Change of plans. You're staying on Haven Point for the duration of the HFYxScifi delegation's visit. Apparently, Ambassador the Lyra specifically requested you as her liaison." Elias blinked. "She what?" "You heard me. Whatever you did, it left an impression. Report to the Terran Embassy, level 42. They're expecting you." The call ended. Elias turned to glance back down the corridor. The Lyra was still there, watching him from a distance. Her golden eyes unreadable. "Well," he muttered to himself, "that just got complicated."
Elias's new quarters in the Terran Embassy were functional, standard-issue furniture, a kitchenette, and a small desk with a direct uplink to diplomatic command. The moment he was alone, he dropped his bag, sat on the edge of the bed, and activated his datapad. A burning curiosity drove his fingers to the station's cultural database. HFYxScifi Confederation, an ancient feline humanoid species known for blending diplomacy and warrior tradition. He scanned down until a phrase caught his eye. Voice resonance imprinting, a rare HFYxScifi phenomenon wherein a female may experience an involuntary biological response to the voice of a genetically compatible mate. His heart skipped. This reaction includes visible skin flushing, increased pupil dilation, and elevated hormone levels. It is believed to be an ancient evolutionary mechanism to preserve genetic strength. Once triggered, the HFYxScifi female's body initiates a bonding cycle, traditionally fulfilled within 1 lunar rotation. Elias rubbed his jaw. Holy hell! He scrolled further. While not biologically harmful, the process causes significant physical tension, emotional agitation, and persistent awareness of the resonant individual's proximity. Cultural tradition strongly encourages resolution. No wonder she'd requested him. Before he could think further, his comm unit buzzed with a new message, his first assignment as liaison. Escort Ambassador the Lyra to a diplomatic reception this evening. Dress formal. Be punctual. That evening, Elias arrived early to the grand atrium, now transformed into a sea of banners, glass sculptures, and softly glowing lanterns. Delegates from dozens of worlds mingled over floating hors d'oeuvres and alien wines. Then he saw her. The Lyra stood apart, her silver-white hair now styled into elaborate loops, an emerald gown flowing like liquid over her frame, accentuating her violet skin. She was stunning, and clearly agitated. Her ears twitched constantly, scanning for every sound. When her golden eyes locked on him, she turned sharply and disappeared into a side corridor. Elias blinked. Really? And then he gave chase. What followed was absurd. Every time he turned a corner, he'd catch a glimpse of her vanishing into another hall or ducking behind a group of stern diplomats. It wasn't a run, it was a calculated evasion. But he was stubborn. He finally found her in a quiet observation lounge, starlight spilling in through a curved viewport. "Ambassador," he said firmly, stepping inside. She turned, and as expected, flushed a vibrant magenta. "There is nothing to discuss, Technician Rourke." "I think there is," he said, keeping his voice calm. "I read about HFYxScifi biology. About the resonance." Her eyes widened. "You know." He nodded. "I understand now. At least the basics." She looked away, arms crossing her chest. "It's humiliating. I've trained all my life to master mind and body. I am heir to one of the most prestigious bloodlines in the Confederation. And now, this." "A random Terran voice short-circuits everything," Elias said softly. The Lyra gave him a wary glance. "Yes. I didn't do it on purpose," he added. "But I don't think it's meaningless, either." She sighed. "This response, it's ancient. And rare. Some HFYxScifi spend their entire lives without experiencing it. But to have it triggered by an off-worlder? The political implications alone." "I'm not asking you to act on it," Elias interrupted. "But I'm not going to pretend nothing's happening either." He paused. "How long does the cycle last?" 30 Earth days, she replied reluctantly. "Then it resets. And during that time? Increased awareness of you. Distraction. Tension. Eventually, fever. It becomes difficult to function." Elias hesitated. "And if the cycle is fulfilled?" Her eyes snapped to his. "Traditionally, it results in full bonding. A partnership, emotionally and physically. But I won't be pressured by biology." "I'm not pressuring you," he said. "But maybe there's more here than biology." The Lyra's ears twitched as she studied him. "You're surprisingly rational for someone caught in a mating dilemma." He grinned. "I'm a comms tech. Rationality's my thing." A small smile tugged at her lips. "Still, we know nothing about each other." "Then let's fix that," Elias offered. "Start simple. Spend time together. If nothing else, we'll help the cycle pass more comfortably." She regarded him for a long moment, then gave a slow nod. "Very well. But on HFYxScifi terms." Over the next several days, Elias was introduced to aspects of HFYxScifi culture most Terrans would never glimpse. In the botanical gardens, the Lyra explained, "Our people have practiced interstellar diplomacy for 3 millennia. The Confederation spans 12 systems, unified by honor." Elias admired the bioluminescent plants. "Humans have been spacefaring for 300 years. We're still learning to walk." She tilted her head. "And yet, you adapt quickly. It's admirable." "We're impatient," he said with a grin. "We like shortcuts." She smirked. "Including in courtship, I suspect." Elias blinked. "Excuse me? Most species have courtships that span months. Humans seem to, how do you say, fast forward to results." "We do romance," Elias protested. The Lyra chuckled. "Our traditional courtship spans 7 lunar cycles. The first is for intellectual compatibility. The second? Combat." "Combat?" Elias raised a brow. "We engage in ritual sparring. To test physical harmony." He eyed her skeptically. "So you wrestle your potential soulmate?" "Battle dance," she corrected. "It reveals more than words ever could." Elias couldn't stop himself. "I can think of other dances that reveal compatibility." She flushed again, deep magenta this time. Your voice continues to make this difficult, Elias. He softened. Then maybe we should face it. Together. That evening, she invited him to her quarters. The third phase of bonding is the sharing of truths, the Lyra explained. It is usually performed weeks into courtship. But given the resonance. He arrived in casual Terran clothes. Her quarters had been transformed into a ceremonial space. A glowing orb sat between floor cushions. She wore a white ceremonial robe, her hair unbound. They knelt opposite each other, legs folded. What happens now? Elias whispered. We ask questions, she said. Each of us must place our hand on the luminary orb when answering. It reveals the emotional truth behind our words. She went first. What do you truly want from this bond? Elias placed his hand on the orb. Understanding. Connection. And, maybe something real. Something lasting. The orb pulsed blue, truth. His turn. What happens to you, physically, if we ignore the resonance? She hesitated, placing her hand on the orb. Discomfort. Heat. Eventually, a fire in the blood. The orb flickered, partial truth, then shifted to steady blue. You weren't lying, he said. Just softening it. She nodded. Then her question. Does it disturb you, Elias? That my body chose you without your consent? He didn't hesitate. No. Biology might have started this. But I'm still here by choice. The orb blazed bright blue. Elias met her gaze. Final question. Beyond biology, beyond duty, do you want me? Thalira's fingers trembled on the orb. Yes, she whispered. Since the moment you leaned in. Your voice, your presence. You unravel me. The orb flared brilliant blue, brighter than before. They didn't move for a moment. Then, without thought, they leaned into each other. Fingers brushed. Lips met. A kiss that carried centuries of culture and seconds of impulse. Soft at first. Then urgent. She gasped against his neck. Speak again. Close. You're extraordinary, Elias whispered. Everything about you draws me in. A shiver ran through her. Her skin flushed, breath quickened. What followed was not just physical. It was elemental. And afterward, as they lay together on the cushions, her head on his chest and her tail curled possessively around his leg, the Lyra murmured, "This changes everything." Elias stroked her hair. For the better. Then, without warning. Alert. Security breach in progress. Diplomatic lockdown initiated. Red lights flashed through the quarters. Thalira's communicator chimed. She sat up, reading the message aloud. The Vrain have launched a surprise attack on our outer colonies. Elias sat bolt upright. A full-scale war. She nodded grimly. And I've just been recalled. The station rocked violently as another explosion echoed through the corridor outside Thalira's quarters. Loose items clattered to the floor. Elias jumped up, grabbing his jacket while the Lyra reached for her uniform. The silky white robe she'd worn for the ritual now lay crumpled between them, forgotten in the face of war. You're being recalled? Elias asked, already scanning the walls for a dataport. My father's calling all senior delegates back to Felisur Prime, she said, voice clipped, all diplomat now. They need me on the War Council. The red emergency lighting bathed everything in pulsing crimson. Through the window, the stars shimmered unnaturally as the station's shielding flickered. This can't be coincidence, Elias muttered. The attack. The timing. Right after we. She nodded. You think they're targeting me? I think they're targeting what you know. The Lyra retrieved her sidearm from a case beneath her bed, sleek, silver, unmistakably military. Then we're both in danger. Just then, the ceiling above them groaned and burst, a cascade of sparks and support struts separating them with a shower of debris. Elias rolled backward, coughing from the smoke. "The Lyra," he shouted. "I'm all right," her voice called from the other side. "The corridor to the diplomatic hangars is still clear. I can't get through this pile. We'll have to split. Rendezvous later." Elias hesitated. If the Vrain infiltrated the station, their first objective will be disabling communications. "I need to get to the central relay." "You'll be a target," she warned. "So will you," he shot back. "But if I can stop them from silencing this place, maybe we can get a warning out to your people." A pause. Then her voice softened. "Elias, whatever happens. We'll finish that thought when we're not getting bombed," he interrupted. "Now go." "Your voice always gives orders like they're suggestions," she said with a dry laugh. "It's infuriating." "It's charming," he countered. "Move." Elias turned and ran through the smoke-choked service corridors toward the communications hub, his datapad in one hand and Thalira's scent still lingering on his skin. The station was chaos. Panic surged through every hallway. Multi-species security officers tried to herd civilians toward shelters. Smoke poured from ruptured bulkheads. But Elias kept his head down, moving fast, his diplomatic badge giving him access past checkpoints and into restricted corridors. The communications hub was unusually quiet. Too quiet. Elias slowed his pace. Something felt wrong. The two guards outside the entrance looked relaxed, too relaxed. Posture perfect. No tension. No reaction to the chaos outside. He ducked into a nearby maintenance duct and peered out from behind a vent. Something in their movements was off. Too precise. Too synchronized. Infiltrators. He pulled up his datapad and overlaid the station's security protocols. Using an old maintenance access code from a previous assignment, he slipped into a ventilation shaft leading to an upper level of the comms room. Inside, 6 guards, clearly Vrain agents, were working feverishly at the central core, attaching a black pulse modulator to the main data stream. Nearby, a jamming transmitter was already humming. Cutting off outbound transmissions, Elias muttered. Classic move. He watched as one of them spoke into a communicator. Initiating data extraction. HFYxScifi defense protocols and planetary access codes are transferring now. Elias's blood ran cold. This wasn't just sabotage. It was espionage. They were stealing navigation data to launch a direct assault on Thalira's home world. He moved fast, crawling silently toward an auxiliary terminal. Plugged in his datapad. Ran a trace. The files being siphoned weren't just defense grids, they included HFYxScifi fleet schedules, encrypted codes, and Thalira's personal security clearance. This was an assassination prep. And if they got that data off the station? Elias unplugged and tucked the datapad into his vest. He had to act. From above, he triggered the fire suppression system. Instantly, a white fog burst into the chamber. Foam filled the room. Shouts rang out. Elias used the confusion to drop from the ceiling, crash landing on the main console. He grabbed the pulse modulator and smashed it against the metal floor. The jamming transmitter cracked under his boot. A Vrain soldier shouted. Human. Elias didn't wait. He sprinted through the foam, bolting down the corridor as energy blasts hissed past him, leaving scorch marks on the walls. He slammed into the nearest access point and shouted into his comm, "Emergency override." Elias Rourke, Terran liaison. Patch me through to the HFYxScifi vessel immediately. A second's delay. Then Thalira's voice filled his earpiece. Elias? Are you safe? Sort of. I've got their stolen data core. And they were after your planetary defense files. This attack is just step one. Her breath caught. Then they'll be coming for me. And we have a traitor, Elias added. Someone in your delegation gave them access. Thalira's voice dropped to a whisper. Turan. Your chief counselor. He's the only one with full clearance. It makes sense. Then I need to get to you. Now. Fastest route. Service Duct 42B. I'll override security. But you'll have only 30 seconds before the lockdown reactivates. Copy that. Be ready. He turned and sprinted again, diving into the access tunnel. Section 42B was deserted, eerily so. The hatch gleamed red, locked. Elias crouched, heart pounding. I'm here, he whispered. Now would be great. Override engaged, came Thalira's voice. You have 30 seconds. Go. The lock blinked green. Elias yanked the hatch open and crawled in. The passage was narrow, unlit, and slick with condensation. He was halfway through when a voice echoed behind him. Technician Rourke. Elias froze. Counselor Turan stood at the tunnel entrance, his dignified uniform pristine, a faint smirk on his angular face. In his hand, a HFYxScifi sidearm. Of all the people, Elias said. Why am I not surprised? Turan cocked his head. Humans. Always so melodramatic. You betrayed your people for what? A promotion in the Vrain Empire? They value progress over protocol. And I grow tired of serving ancient traditions while the universe moves forward. The Lyra trusted you. She was naive, Turan said coldly. But she'll be useful, as leverage. Elias narrowed his eyes. You're not getting her. Or this. He held up the data core. Turan raised his weapon. Then I'm afraid you'll die here. But Elias moved first, slamming his foot into the narrow side wall, rebounding into a full-body shove. Turan lost balance just long enough for Elias to squeeze through the tunnel and bolt for the docking bay. The Lyra, he shouted into his comm, Turan's the traitor. He's armed and he's chasing me. The doors to the HFYxScifi diplomatic ship loomed ahead. The Lyra stood at the ramp, blaster drawn. Run faster. He dove, sprinting across the open bay as energy blasts flew past. She returned fire, forcing Turan to retreat. Elias vaulted up the ramp, slammed the hatch, and turned to her, breathless. You okay? She asked. No, he wheezed. But I've got what they wanted. Then let's get off this station. As she powered up the ship, Elias slid into the co-pilot's chair. He connected his datapad and began transmitting defense data to a secure HFYxScifi node. The ship lurched violently. Another explosion? He asked. The Lyra frowned. No. That came from the station's hull. Vrain ships are boarding. We have to leave. Now. But Control has locked down protocols. We're trapped. Elias hacked fast, rerouting their systems. I broke their jammer. I just need 20 seconds. Another explosion rocked the bay. 10, she said. I can give you 10. 3, 2. Got it. Docking clamps released. The Lyra slammed the engines to full. The sleek vessel screamed out of the hangar as Vrain troopers poured in. Below, the station shrank behind them. Ahead, the dark void of space, and uncertain safety. Then, the Lyra's breath caught. Her hand trembled on the controls. Something's wrong, she whispered. Elias looked over. Her pupils were dilated again, and her violet skin flushed deep plum. What is it? He asked. She turned to him, golden eyes wide. Since our bonding. I feel different. Different how? My body. It's not just responding to you. It's changing. Elias reached for her hand, trying to steady her. We'll figure it out. Together. She took a deep breath, regaining control. We still have to reach my people. If they don't hear from us soon. We're making it, Elias said, already plotting course vectors. And when we get there, we'll tell them everything. About Taran. About the Vrain. About us. A soft smile curved her lips. About us? Yeah, he said, squeezing her fingers. You and me. And possibly, more, she added softly, her hand brushing across her abdomen. Elias blinked. Wait. Are you saying? She met his gaze. It's too soon to know. But HFYxScifi physiology is efficient. The implications crashed into him like a warship through atmosphere. He didn't say anything at first. Just stared at her, stunned, and amazed. Well then, he murmured, turning back to the controls. Guess we just raised the stakes. The diplomatic vessel streaked through the starfield, trailed by 3 Vrain interceptors. Elias's eyes stayed locked on the sensor readouts as blips drew steadily closer. They're gaining, he warned. The Lyra didn't flinch. Her hands moved fluidly over the controls, her silver-white hair drifting slightly with each hard bank of the ship. We're close. One more jump and we'll reach the edge of HFYxScifi space. Do they know the approach vector? Elias asked. Not the one we're using, she said, a flicker of defiance in her tone. This path isn't in any database. It's a smuggler's route. My cousin showed me when I was 14. Father never found out. Elias grinned despite the tension. You? A rule breaker? Thalira's lips curved. We all have secrets. The ship rocked as a blast grazed the aft shields. Elias gripped his seat. Shields at 60%, he muttered. Let's hope your teenage rebellion pays off. Ahead, a shimmering distortion appeared in space. A narrow opening in the nebula clouds, barely wide enough for their vessel. The Lyra pushed the throttle. Hold on. They shot into the corridor, and instantly the ship began to lurch and buck, gravitational eddies clawing at them from all sides. Elias winced. You call this a passage? Only if you survive it. Behind them, 1 Vrain interceptor attempted to follow. Seconds later, it spun wildly and slammed into the nebula wall, vanishing in a flash of violet flame. The other 2 pulled back. Cowards, the Lyra muttered. Elias exhaled. Guess that bought us some time. The ship emerged into calm space. Before them floated the HFYxScifi homeworld, a blue-green orb with swirling violet storms and glittering oceans. Orbiting it, dozens of sleek, silver defense platforms, each bristling with weaponry. Beautiful, Elias said softly. Home, the Lyra replied, though her voice was heavy with unspoken worry. The comm unit crackled. A stern voice filled the cockpit. Unregistered vessel, this is HFYxScifi Defense Command. Identify yourself immediately or you will be destroyed. The Lyra leaned forward. This is Ambassador the Lyra, daughter of High Commander Seraph. Authorization code Sirius 97. I am returning under emergency protocol with urgent intelligence. A pause. Authorization acknowledged. However, we detect an unregistered life form aboard. Explain. The Lyra glanced at Elias. My liaison from Earth. Elias Rourke. He risked his life to recover stolen defense data from Vrain infiltrators. I vouch for him. Another pause. Transmit approach vector. The High Commander awaits your arrival. Elias looked at her. Think he'll be thrilled you brought home a Terran? Thalira's expression was unreadable. He'll listen. The ship descended into the planet's atmosphere, streaking past mountain ranges and vast crystalline lakes. They touched down at a high-security military compound just outside the capital. A place Elias had only ever read about in classified files. Waiting for them was a contingent of HFYxScifi warriors in gleaming armor, and at their center stood an imposing figure, tall, broad-shouldered, and cloaked in authority. High Commander Sereth. His golden eyes scanned Elias with the dispassion of a seasoned general assessing a foreign element. "Father," the Lyra said, bowing. "Daughter," Sereth replied, then turned to Elias. "You are the human." "Yes, sir." Elias Rourke. Terran Diplomatic Corps. "You have something for me." Elias nodded and handed over his datapad. Stolen security protocols, approach vectors, encrypted fleet data. All extracted from Haven Point during the Vrain infiltration. Their fleet is moving. Sereth reviewed the files in silence. Then, come. We convened the War Council immediately. Hours passed in a blur of tactical briefings and hollow-eyed officers parsing data. The council chamber hummed with tension. But the evidence Elias provided was irrefutable. Turan's treachery, the Vrain's exact invasion route, and their compromised agents already seated across multiple colonies. The HFYxScifi moved quickly. Fleets were rerouted. Defenses repositioned. Traps were set. When the Vrain armada arrived, expecting to find a vulnerable capital, they instead flew straight into a gauntlet of coordinated firepower. The battle was swift and decisive. The Vrain flagship was captured. The rest of the fleet scattered in retreat. By the next dawn, the war was over, before it had ever truly begun. That evening, as the capital city lit up in quiet celebration, Elias stood beside the Lyra on a balcony high above the city. Lanterns drifted in the wind, and the smell of flowering trees filled the air. He leaned on the railing, taking it all in. "You saved my people," the Lyra said. "I had help," he replied, nudging her shoulder gently. "Some of it, very purple and very stubborn." Her ears twitched in amusement. Father was impressed. "Really?" He said, and I quote, "The human is irritatingly effective." That's as close to praise as he gives. Elias smiled. "And what did you tell him about us?" She stepped closer. "I told him the resonance was real. That we bonded. And that I am carrying the first human HFYxScifi child." Elias froze. "You're sure?" The Lyra nodded. "Our biology confirms within 24 hours. Efficient, remember?" He laughed. Then sobered. "And he's okay with this?" After his initial shock, yes. He said perhaps our lineage needs fresh instincts. That's a blessing. Of sorts. Elias exhaled. "So what happens now?" "We rest," she said. "And then, we prepare." "For what?" "For the bonding ceremony." He blinked. "Is that the one where I have to spar with someone?" "With me." "Oh," he said. "Well, I like my bones unbroken, but I guess I'll manage." The Lyra's tail wrapped around his leg. "We'll go easy." "Mostly." They kissed again beneath the alien stars. This time without urgency, without confusion, without war. Just certainty. A connection born of instinct had grown into something stronger. A partnership forged in fire. A future neither had expected. "You know," Elias murmured, brushing her hair back from her face. "When I got assigned to fix a relay, I figured I'd be back on Earth in time for lunch." The Lyra laughed. "Now you're mated to an alien warrior princess. And maybe a dad," he added. "And definitely in trouble." She leaned against him, eyes glowing softly in the moonlight. "But not alone." Elias wrapped his arm around her. "Never again." As fireworks bloomed over the capital, celebrating victory, peace, and the future, he felt something deeper ignite in his chest. Hope. In the end, what began as a routine tech assignment transformed into a galaxy-shaping romance. Elias Rourke, a Terran technician, found not only purpose in the halls of Haven Point Station, but something even rarer, true connection. The Lyra, proud ambassador of the Felixari Confederation, once bound by tradition and duty, allowed herself to follow something deeper. A resonance not of biology alone, but of soul. Together, they stopped an interstellar war, exposed betrayal within the highest ranks, and laid the foundation for something new, a union between two worlds once strangers, now allies. And possibly, family. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy. They would face skepticism, cultural clashes, and the weight of responsibility on both sides of the stars. But they'd face it side by side. For now, the galaxy was quiet. But in the silence, life stirred. A new generation. A new beginning. A love that began with a voice, and echoed across worlds. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. There's more sci-fi storytelling where this came from, and trust me, the next tale is already in orbit. See you next time, explorers. And remember, sometimes, the smallest assignment leads to the biggest adventures.